Most people go through life without ever realizing how much strength they already carry within them. We look at others and think they're built differently, blessed with some inner fire we somehow missed. But the truth is, strength doesn't arrive fully formed. It isn't a switch that flips on when life gets hard. It's something that's been quietly developing inside you long before you ever needed it, waiting for the right moment to reveal itself. And the first step to accessing that strength is recognizing that it's already there, even when everything in you is convinced otherwise. We often convince ourselves that strength is something external, something you find, something you earn, something you go searching for after everything falls apart. But strength begins internally, sometimes so quietly you overlook it. Think about the moments you survived without thinking you could. Think about the times you held on when walking away would have been easier. Think about the decisions you made when you were scared, tired, overwhelmed, or discouraged. None of those moments felt heroic. They didn't sparkle or shine, but they were strength, real, unpolished strength. The problem is, we don't give ourselves credit for the resilience we've already practiced. We don't label it as strength because it didn't feel powerful in the moment. It felt like exhaustion. It felt like uncertainty. It felt like doing what you had to do, not what you wanted to do. But that's exactly where hidden strength lies, in the choices you make, when you have every reason to give up, but somehow continue anyway. And when you start acknowledging those moments, you begin to realize you're far stronger than you've allowed yourself to believe. When you recognize the strength already within you, something shifts. You stop seeing challenges as proof that you're not capable. You start seeing them as opportunities to discover just how much capacity you actually have. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead start asking, "What is this moment showing me about what I'm capable of?" That shift isn't small. It's empowering. It changes the lens through which you view your life. But recognition requires honesty. You have to be willing to look at your own story without downplaying it. You have to name your endurance, your growth, your adaptability, your survival, and your persistence. Too often, we minimize what we've been through because we think strength must look dramatic or intense. We think it requires a certain image, unshakable confidence, bold posture, and inspiring battle cry. But strength rarely announces itself. More often, it whispers through the decisions you made when no one was watching. Sometimes the strongest thing you do is simply show up. Sometimes strength is admitting you're afraid, yet taking a step forward anyway. Sometimes it's choosing patience over panic. Sometimes it's letting go of something that was holding you back, even when the familiar felt easier. Sometimes it's forgiving yourself for mistakes you've carried for too long. Strength is not one thing. It's many small things layered over time, forming a foundation you didn't realize you built. Recognizing your inner strength also means recognizing the voice inside you that tries to convince you otherwise. That voice might be fear, it might be past failure, it might be someone else's expectations. It might be a story you've repeated to yourself so many times that you forgot you're the one who wrote it. Hidden strength becomes visible when you challenge that voice instead of obeying it. When you choose to believe that your worth and resilience are not defined by that old narrative. When you realize that the voice inside you can grow louder, clearer, and more powerful if you feed it courage instead of doubt. And once you start seeing your strength, you begin to carry yourself differently, not with arrogance but with awareness, not with ego but with responsibility. You begin to understand that you are not fragile, you are not empty. You are not unprepared. You are someone who has already navigated storms, endured heartbreaks, climbed out of setbacks, and rebuilt yourself in ways you rarely acknowledge. Strength is not something you're trying to manufacture. It is something you're finally allowing yourself to see. If you don't recognize the strength within you, you will never fully use it. You'll face challenges believing you're unarmed. You'll approach goals believing you're unqualified. You'll walk through life believing you're one step behind everyone else. But when you understand that strength has always been a part of your identity, you stop approaching life as someone who's lacking. You start approaching it as someone who's equipped, someone who's already proven again and again that they can handle far more than they ever imagined. And maybe the most important truth is this: you don't discover strength by avoiding difficulty. You discover it by stepping into it with the belief that something inside you is ready for this moment, even if you feel unsure. Every challenge you face doesn't diminish your strength. It reveals it. It draws it out. It expands it. It makes it undeniable. Strength is not a gift you wait for. It's a reality you choose to recognize. The strength you're searching for is already in you, waiting for you to trust it. Struggle has a way of making us question everything about ourselves. When life becomes heavy, when obstacles stack up, when plans collapse, it's easy to read those moments as signs that we're failing or falling behind. But struggle was never meant to be a verdict. It was never meant to declare who you are or what you're capable of. Struggle is a signal. It's a moment that invites you to pause, pay attention, and understand that something deep within you is being prepared, strengthened, and reshaped in ways you can't yet see. Most people interpret hardship as a warning that they're on the wrong path. They panic, they retreat. They assume the presence of difficulty means the absence of ability. But the truth is more nuanced, more powerful, and far more compassionate than that. Struggle isn't evidence that you're weak. It's evidence that you're growing. It's a reminder that you're stepping into territory that requires a stronger version of yourself. And that version is in the making right now. Think about any meaningful growth you've ever experienced emotionally, mentally, spiritually, or professionally. None of it came from comfort. None of it came from smooth pathways or predictable routines. Growth always demanded discomfort. It asked you to stretch, adapt, and confront parts of yourself you would have rather avoided. And though you may not have recognized it at the time, those struggles were shaping you into someone more resilient, more aware, and more capable than you were before. When you begin to reframe struggle, you stop fighting the experience and start learning from it. You begin to ask different questions. Instead of why me, you start asking why now. Instead of what's wrong with me, you start asking what is this challenge trying to build in me. That small shift in perspective is like flipping a light switch in a dark room. Suddenly, the chaos doesn't feel meaningless. The hardship doesn't feel pointless. You begin to see that every painful moment carries a lesson, a direction, or a refinement you could not have received any other way. Struggle also forces clarity. It shows you what truly matters and what doesn't. It strips away the noise, the distractions, the illusions of control. In struggle, you are brought face with your priorities, your values, and the strength of your commitment. You begin to realize that not everything deserves your energy, not everyone deserves your attention, and not every path deserves your footsteps. Hardship isn't always an obstacle. Sometimes it's a filter. And then there's resilience, the quiet, persistent force that grows whenever you refuse to let struggle redefine you. You may not feel strong in the moment, but resilience doesn't require confidence. It requires continuation. It requires showing up again, even with fear in your chest. It requires trying again, even with disappointment lingering. It requires believing that this chapter is shaping you, not breaking you. Resilience grows not through ease, but through repetition, through choosing to stand back up every time life knocks you down. When you see struggle as a signal, you stop spiraling into self-blame. Instead, you become curious. You begin to examine what needs to shift. Your habits, your expectations, your boundaries, your beliefs. You begin to understand that struggle often points to areas that need strengthening, healing, or letting go. It becomes less of a punishment and more of a mirror, reflecting back the parts of you that are ready for transformation. Struggle also teaches you humility, not humiliation, but humility, the kind that reminds you that you don't have to carry everything alone, the kind that opens your heart to support, guidance, faith, reflection, and connection. When you're struggling, you learn to lean on wisdom, on community, on patience, on grace. And in that leaning, you gain stability that pride would have never allowed you to receive. And perhaps the most profound truth is this: struggle reveals what you're capable of long before success ever does. Anyone can feel confident when life is easy. Anyone can feel strong when everything clicks. But only struggle tests the depth of your faith in yourself. Only struggle pushes you to discover capacities you didn't realize were there. Only struggle forces you to become resourceful, creative, and resilient in ways comfort never could. You grow in the stretch. You grow in the tension. You grow in the moments when quitting feels tempting, but something inside you says, "Not yet, not like this." That moment, when you feel the weight yet choose to continue, that's where hidden strength becomes visible. That's where transformation begins. And that's why struggle isn't the barrier you think it is. It's the birthplace of your next version. When you understand that struggle is a signal, not a setback, you stop running from the difficult moments in your life. You meet them, you study them, you let them refine you. You allow them to awaken the strength, clarity, and purpose that were lying dormant within you. Because struggle isn't here to break you. It's here to reveal you. So many people move through life on autopilot without ever pausing to ask themselves whether they're actually living or simply existing. We fall into routines, into expectations, into patterns we never consciously chose. We wake up, go through the motions, meet obligations, and follow the same emotional pathways we've walked for years. And, without realizing it, we drift further from the potential that quietly waits beneath the surface of our daily habits. Waking up to that potential is not a moment of sudden revelation. It's a decision to become aware, intentional, and engaged with the power inside you that you've been ignoring, suppressing, or underestimating for far too long. Most of us don't discover our potential because we assume that what we've already shown is all we have. We convince ourselves that our abilities are fixed, our limits are set, and our talents are already on full display. But the truth is, your potential is not confined to what you've done. It stretches far beyond what you've even imagined. There are layers of confidence, creativity, discipline, clarity, compassion, and resilience inside you that you haven't touched yet. They aren't gone, they aren't missing, they simply haven't been awakened. Waking up to your potential begins with awareness, an honest look at the habits and beliefs that keep you asleep. Some people stay asleep because it's comfortable. Comfort creates a soft fog around you, convincing you that your current life is good enough, even if deep down you feel restless or unfulfilled. Others stay asleep because of fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of stepping into something bigger than what they've known. And then there are those who stay asleep because they've carried old narratives for so long that they've mistaken them for truth. Narratives that whisper, "This is just who you are," when in reality, you've barely scratched the surface of who you could become. When you begin to wake up, you start noticing the moments when you hold back. Not because you can't, but because you assume you can't. You start catching yourself choosing the familiar over the meaningful. You begin recognizing the small ways you silence your own voice or shrink your own dreams. These realizations might sting at first, but they're evidence that you're becoming conscious again. Awareness is rarely comfortable, but it is always liberating. Waking up doesn't mean uprooting your life overnight. It means shifting the way you see yourself and your capacity. Instead of thinking, this is all I'm capable of, you begin asking, what else is inside me that I haven't brought out yet? That single question can open doors you didn't know existed. It pushes you to try, to experiment, to stretch, to explore. Potential doesn't unfold automatically. It responds to curiosity, courage, and consistent engagement. You also wake up when you stop outsourcing your power, when you stop waiting for validation, permission, or ideal conditions. So many people pause their growth because they're waiting to be chosen, noticed, applauded, or approved. But untapped potential doesn't activate through external praise. It activates when you decide that who you could become matters more than how people might perceive you. The moment you stop living your life through the lens of others' expectations is the moment you reclaim your ability to grow without limits. And waking up requires honesty about the habits that dull your potential. The conversations you entertain, the distractions you indulge, the negativity you tolerate, the excuses you repeat. These things drain the energy needed for your next level. When you start paying attention, you begin to see how many of your daily choices either nourish your potential or numb it. Little by little, you replace habits that keep you small with habits that make you stronger, sharper, and more aligned with your purpose. There's another layer to waking up: permission. You have to give yourself permission to evolve, to change, to dream differently than you did 5 years ago or even last year. Too many people cling to old versions of themselves because they fear what others might say about their growth. But you are not here to remain stagnant. You are here to unfold. You are here to stretch into the fullness of who you're meant to be. Growth may confuse people who prefer the old version of you, but that is not your burden to carry. You cannot dim your potential to protect someone else's comfort. When you truly wake up, you feel something shift in your spirit. You begin to sense that your life has deeper layers, meaningful layers, that you've overlooked. You notice passions you buried, ideas you postponed, dreams you muted. You begin to feel a pull towards something greater. This isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's the quiet realization that you were created with far more capacity than the world ever taught you to recognize. And as you step into this awareness, you begin to see that your potential is not just about achievement. It's about becoming whole. It's about becoming someone who is deeply connected to purpose, grounded in resilience, fueled by clarity, and guided by intention. That version of you has been waiting patiently, waiting for you to stop sleepwalking through your life, waiting for you to stop underestimating yourself, waiting for you to finally say, I'm ready, because the moment you wake up to your untapped potential, you stop living small. You start living awake. There's a moment in every person's journey where they realize that motivation alone isn't enough to carry them forward. Motivation flickers, it rises and falls with your emotions. It's loud when life feels exciting and silent when life feels heavy. If you rely on motivation to access your strength, you'll find yourself constantly restarting, constantly searching, constantly trying to spark something that never lasts long enough. But when you lock in on purpose, when you anchor your energy to something deeper than pressure, expectation, or the need to impress, your strength becomes steady, it becomes grounded, it becomes something you can return to again and again, even when the world feels chaotic. Purpose is not about chasing applause or approval. It's not about competing with others or proving that you're worthy of recognition. Purpose is the quiet clarity that reminds you why you're doing what you're doing. It's the truth you hold on to when everything around you feels unstable. It's the inner compass that keeps you moving in the right direction even when the path feels uncertain. When your actions are tied to purpose instead of pressure, you don't crumble as easily. You don't feel lost as often. You don't question your worth every time you fall. because purpose doesn't disappear when life gets difficult. It deepens. Pressure, on the other hand, drains you. It convinces you that you have to be perfect, that you have to meet everyone's expectations, that every mistake is a sign of failure, that every struggle is a sign that you're not good enough. Pressure makes you rush, it makes you doubt, it makes you compare yourself with others, and comparison is one of the quickest ways to lose sight of your strength. When you measure your journey against someone else's timeline, you forget the uniqueness of your own path. You forget that what you're building requires your pace, your process, your story. But purpose slows you down in the best way. It brings you back to yourself. It reminds you that what matters is not how quickly you move, but how aligned you are while moving. When you lock in on purpose, you stop trying to outrun your insecurities and start trying to understand them. You stop chasing validation and start nurturing growth. You stop performing for the world and start building your life from the inside out. Purpose also steadies your emotions. It doesn't erase fear or doubt, but it gives them context. When you know your why, fear becomes manageable instead of paralyzing. Doubt becomes a visitor instead of a dictator. You begin to navigate challenges with a sense of internal direction rather than emotional reactivity. You stop being tossed around by the ups and downs of your feelings. Purpose won't remove the storms, but it will anchor you through them. And there's something else. When you lock in on purpose, your choices become clearer. You start making decisions not based on convenience or comfort, but based on alignment. You start saying no to things that pull you off course. You start saying yes to things that nourish your growth, even if they require patience, discipline, or sacrifice. The more aligned your decisions become, the more powerful your life feels. It's not that everything becomes easy, it's that everything becomes intentional. Purpose also transforms your relationship with adversity. Instead of seeing obstacles as interruptions, you begin to see them as part of the curriculum. Every meaningful purpose comes with pressure, but it's a different kind of pressure. It's not the pressure that crushes you, it's the pressure that shapes you. It pushes you to develop resilience, clarity, discipline, and depth. It pushes you to grow into the kind of person who can carry what you're asking for. Purpose is not just about where you're going, it's about who you become on the way. And when you live from purpose, you stop needing life to be perfect in order to move forward. You learn to work with what you have. You learn to trust the process. You learn to stay committed even when progress feels slow or invisible. Purpose gives you permission to be patient. It gives you the courage to be consistent. It gives you the strength to remain grounded in seasons where everything seems uncertain. There is a quiet confidence that comes from living with purpose. Not a loud confidence that demands to be seen, but a steady one that flows from within. You no longer feel the need to prove yourself because you're too busy becoming yourself. You no longer chase what isn't meant for you because you're anchored to what is. You walk differently. You breathe differently. You move with intention, not impulse. And this is why locking in on purpose is part of finding strength you didn't know you had. When your actions, decisions, and efforts are rooted in meaning, you become unshakable. You stop breaking under pressure because pressure is no longer your master. Purpose becomes your guide, your focus, your anchor. Lock in on purpose, and you will unlock strength you never realized was yours. Strength is rarely revealed in one dramatic moment. Most of the time, it's uncovered in small, almost ordinary decisions that accumulate quietly over days, weeks, and months. We often imagine strength as something bold and heroic, something loud and unmistakable. But in reality, the kind of strength that transforms your character and reshapes your life grows slowly, in the steady rhythm of small, brave actions that you choose even when no one is watching. These small acts may feel insignificant, but they are the building blocks of the resilience you're trying to unlock. The challenge is that we've been trained to look for big leaps instead of consistent steps. We wait for perfect timing, perfect confidence, or perfect circumstances. We think we need to overhaul our lives in one massive burst of energy, but nothing that lasts is built that way. Big change doesn't begin with big actions. It begins with a single moment of courage repeated consistently. It begins with choosing progress over perfection. It begins with showing up as you are, with what you have, even when fear is loud and motivation is quiet. When you take small, brave actions, you learn something important. You don't need to feel ready to move forward. Readiness is not a prerequisite for progress. Most people wait for confidence before taking a step, but confidence is built through the step itself. You gain clarity by moving, not by thinking. You gain strength by doing, not by waiting. Every small act, every choice to try again, every moment you push past hesitation, every attempt to rise after falling. These are the moments your strength takes shape. And bravery in small actions doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like getting out of bed on a difficult morning. Sometimes it looks like making one phone call you've been avoiding. Sometimes it looks like being honest with yourself. Sometimes it looks like asking for help. Sometimes it looks like taking responsibility for your future instead of blaming your past. These moments feel small, but they are not. They are seeds of transformation planted quietly, often painfully, but always purposefully. Over time, these small acts begin to change the way you see yourself. They help you trust your own resilience. You start to realize, if I handled that small thing yesterday, maybe I can handle this slightly bigger thing today. Strength doesn't grow in a straight line, it grows through accumulation. It grows when you surprise yourself with what you can endure. It grows when you keep going even when the progress is invisible. And that's the thing, strength often builds long before you see the results. The roots form before the branches appear. Momentum is one of the most powerful forces in personal growth. When you take one small step, it becomes easier to take the next. When you make one brave decision, it becomes easier to make another. Momentum reduces hesitation. It shrinks fear. It teaches your mind and heart that movement is possible, that growth is possible, that change is possible. And the beautiful thing about momentum is that it doesn't require perfection to build. It only requires consistency. But consistency doesn't mean doing everything every day. It means doing something every day, and that something may change based on your season of life, your emotional state, your responsibilities, or your energy. Some days your step will be big, some days it will be small, some days it will simply be a whisper of effort. But every step counts, every step contributes, every step moves you forward. Taking small, brave actions also releases you from the trap of comparison. When you're focused on your next step, your next inch of progress, your attention shifts away from what others are doing. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's timeline and begin honoring your own. Quiet effort becomes more meaningful than external validation. Inner progress becomes more valuable than outer applause. You stop performing and start growing, and small actions create habits. Habits shape identity. Identity shapes destiny. When you repeatedly choose courage over comfort, even in small doses, you slowly become someone who trusts themselves to do hard things. You become someone who doesn't retreat at the first sign of difficulty. You become someone who moves with intention rather than impulse. That identity, shaped quietly through repetition, is what unlocks strength you didn't know you had. And here's something important. There will be days when you stumble, when your progress dips, when your courage feels thin. That doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. Strength is not the absence of struggle. It's the decision to continue despite it. On the days when you falter, the smallest act of trying again becomes an act of bravery. Starting again is one of the most powerful demonstrations of strength you will ever show yourself. In the end, strength does not come from dramatic gestures. It comes from the choice to continue, the choice to try, the choice to improve, the choice to rise after falling, the choice to believe that your future is worth the effort. These choices, repeated quietly and consistently, turn into a kind of strength that cannot be taken from you because you built it yourself, one brave step at a time. Take small, brave actions and watch your hidden strength awaken. So much of the strength we're searching for is actually locked behind the conversations we have with ourselves. Not the conversations we have with the world, not the ones we have with friends or family, but the private dialogue that runs quietly in the background of our minds. That voice, the one that speaks to you when no one else is around, has more influence on your life than almost anything else. It can lift you or it can paralyze you. It can expand your courage or it can shrink your confidence. And if you want to find strength you didn't know you had, you have to begin by changing the way you speak to yourself when the pressure is on. Most people underestimate the power of their inner dialogue. They think strength is built only through action, through grinding, hustling, pushing forward. And yes, action matters, discipline matters, effort matters. But the truth is, the mind moves before the body does. Your actions follow your thoughts, your decisions follow your beliefs, your courage follows the story you tell yourself. If the story is filled with doubt, fear, limitation, or shame, then even the smallest challenge will feel overwhelming. Not because you're incapable, but because you've already defeated yourself before trying. That's the destructive power of a negative inner voice. It whispers things with such familiarity that you mistake them for truth. It tells you you're not ready, not worthy, not strong enough, not talented enough. It takes your past and turns it into a permanent identity. It magnifies your failures and minimizes your victories. And when you listen to that voice without challenging it, you begin to move through life convinced that your limitations are facts instead of fears. But the moment you shift that dialogue, even slightly, you begin to uncover a different version of yourself. A stronger one, a more capable one, a more grounded one. Changing your inner voice doesn't mean ignoring reality or pretending you have no flaws. It means speaking to yourself with the same compassion you would offer someone you love. It means replacing self-criticism with curiosity. Instead of saying, "I failed again," you ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of saying, "I'm not good enough," you say, "I'm growing and growth takes time." Instead of saying, "I can't handle this," you say, "I've handled things before and I can face this too." Every shift in your inner dialogue opens a door. It creates space for strength to rise instead of being suffocated by doubt. This shift doesn't eliminate fear, it simply makes fear manageable. It doesn't remove challenges, it gives you the confidence to face them. It doesn't guarantee success. It gives you the resilience to try again when success doesn't come easily. Think about how much energy you lose to self-criticism, how often you talk yourself out of opportunities before the world even gets a chance to challenge you. How many dreams you've postponed because of a voice that wasn't speaking truth. It was speaking fear. When you change that voice, you reclaim your energy. You reclaim your focus. You reclaim your potential. You begin to move with a sense of internal permission instead of internal resistance. And here's something many people overlook. Inner dialogue shapes identity. If you constantly tell yourself you're weak, you'll start to believe it. If you tell yourself you're incapable, you'll stop trying. If you tell yourself you're behind, you'll feel defeated before taking a single step. But if you begin to speak strength into your own heart gently, consistently, intentionally, you'll start to see yourself in a new way. You'll begin to act differently because you believe differently. Changing your inner dialogue is not a one-time event. It's a practice, a discipline, a daily commitment to choosing thoughts that support your growth instead of sabotaging it. There will be days when the negative voice comes back louder than ever. There will be days when self-doubt feels heavier than your confidence. That's normal. That's part of being human. The goal is not to silence the negative voice completely. The goal is to ensure it no longer leads your life. And the beautiful thing is, the more you speak to yourself with clarity and compassion, the more naturally it comes. Courage becomes familiar, encouragement becomes instinctive, strength becomes accessible. What once felt like forced positivity becomes your new default. You begin to trust yourself in a deeper way because you're no longer tearing yourself down from the inside. Your inner dialogue also influences how you respond to setback. With a harsh inner voice, every mistake feels final. Every detour feels like failure. Every challenge feels personal. But with a healthier inner voice, you approach struggle with resilience. You understand that failure is feedback, not identity. You understand that progress is a process, not a performance. You understand that your worth is not tied to how quickly you get everything right, and when you're able to speak to yourself in this way, you unlock a strength you didn't even know was there. A strength that was buried under layers of self-doubt, fear, and old stories. A strength that was waiting for you to stop fighting yourself long enough to see what you're capable of. A strength that grows every time you choose a more empowering thought, a more compassionate narrative, a more courageous belief. Because the truth is, your inner voice can either be your greatest obstacle or your greatest ally. And when you choose to rewrite that voice, when you choose to speak to yourself in a way that honors your growth, you open the door to a version of yourself that is stronger, clearer, and more powerful than you ever imagined. Change your inner dialogue and you will change your life.